All right, let's take a look at questing in Unity. So we're going to look at a very simple quest that I created, and the purpose of this quest is to give context for your player and give your players something to do while they're playing your game. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing right now, and you can see the very simple quest that I created. You guys don't necessarily have to make your quest exactly like mine, but the point of this is that you make a quest that is engaging for your player and gives you guys some context for the programming you're going to write coming up in the next iteration. So this is just some sample text that I created. I actually had ChatGPT write it for me. Basically what it says is that you need to press a button on a control panel and then make your way to a temple. Easy as that. You can see that the way I started my opening scene, that it's very obvious that when you're trying to press a button on a panel, this looks different. Now, if I had more time, or what I'm going to ask you guys to do is find a way to make this a little bit more obvious. I could have just put a spotlight on this little panel or obelisk thing to give the player a little bit more of a context to where they're going. So this is where the player starts, and they would see that when they're initially told that they need to click on something. Now you'll see what happens. I click, and a little bit more of my story comes up, and it tells me that I've got to go to this castle with the um, obelisk on top. So let's go ahead and head to the castle. So, gameplay wise, you notice that I'm running in kind of a very obvious pathway here, built into a valley, and then you go up above that little valley pathway, and it's less pathway like. Down here, it very much looks like a pathway. So I'm going to continue up to the temple, and you'll notice that once I get there, there's these four little pillars preventing me from moving on. Now, obviously, you could easily get past these, so I created a collider surrounding them to prevent anyone from trying to like jump by them without completing the quest. The dialog box that popped up, there's actually a collider on the stairs. The dialog box lets you know that you are seeking out a temple, and I think somewhere in the dialog box it mentions the word red or crimson a few times. It does that intentionally because I want the player to look for that temple down there. And you can see the small amount of red inside of it. There's a spotlight. So now when the player tries to travel this way, the idea is that they notice that there's an obstacle in their path. And those obstacles are the bandits pathing below you. And if those bandits hit you, it actually ends the game. So the point is that the player will go back down the pathway and notice this. Now I built this kind of intentionally. Notice how on the bottom, or on this piece here, it sticks out. The point of that is to prevent the player from initially seeing this pathway and to keep them kind of on course. It's kind of like if you see it, you see it, and that's awesome. If you don't, you'd be like, oh, duh, I should have seen it. Okay, well, there's another pathway and just some ruins to give the player a sense that they are working within like a ruined temple or a ruined castle area. Now, there's a couple of bad guys that'll path down through here and get me, so I want to avoid that. Okay, if you click on this, the next thing that tells you is, oh, cool, castle's open. So that's the third phase of our quest. The first was just joining the world. The second was clicking on that first panel, and then that was the third. Once you click on that and head back up to the temple, you will notice that the pillars are gone, and you can now traverse to the top of the temple and complete the game. At the top of the temple, there's another bandit, and their pathing is fairly predictable, so I can just squeeze right by them. Click on that, and the game's over. You can see the bandits stopped. I don't have the ability to move anymore. Okay, so let's talk about the game world and the questing that I created. So if you look at the world from the top down, it's not very big. So if we click on the terrain and take a look at the settings, I think I only have it by 250 by 250. So it's a pretty small terrain. So you can see that I created every bit of this terrain with the quest in mind. There's not a lot of open space. I mean, down here you could put an Easter egg or something, but for the most part, all parts of this terrain, this level, is based on my quest. So the player starts here and traverses up to this temple, and then or up to the castle, and then back down to the temple and back. And that's really the majority of my quest. And I want your guys' quests to be fairly similar initially. This quest is really just a bunch of point and clicks. There's nothing overly complicated about it. There's really no phase where you need to fight a boss in order to move on. You need to avoid enemies, and if you get impacted by one of those enemies, they'll kick you, and that'll end you immediately. But the quest is simple, but effective. It'll show me that you have an understanding of basic quest design. So you guys will be designing your own quest. You do not have to use my exact template. Think about something that you could design. You could have had actual keys that you need to collect. You can even have puzzles. I mean, it'd be pretty simple to create a couple of clickables that you need to click in a specific order with hints given throughout. Anything like that. And we'll talk about the programming for a clickable soon. That'll be in the next iteration. Hopefully you guys gain some inspiration from this, and you can see from my map what the quest looks like. So ideally, when you create your terrain, you develop it with the quest in mind. There's really not a lot of open space here or unnecessary space. There's really just this corner. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Mr. EB should be able to help you through most of this or help each other out in your quest design.